Hi, welcome back to the Stanford Gen Global Educators Network YouTube channel. And I'm here today with the president of West Los Angeles College, Jim Limbaugh. And Jim is here to tell us more about a brand new, exciting center, California Center for Climate Change Education, that is just opening on his campus. And I'm so excited to learn more. So Jim, can I start out by asking you, how did this remarkable new center get started, and how did it very happily end up to be a new crown jewel on your campus?
Well, first, Scott, thanks for the interest. I really appreciate it. I think it began because something like this had been rattling around in the back of my head for years. I began a sustainability program at a college in Maryland, and I've always been very aware of environmental issues, even though my degrees are in English and history, and I did a dissertation in existentialist philosophy. I still have an interest in the science of it and the interrelatedness of climate change, the politics, the history, the social constructs, the psychology impacts. So the idea had just sort of been percolating a little bit. And then on a Friday afternoon, I got a call from the Los Angeles Community College district office. We're 9 colleges.
Right.
And the legislative officer there said, I think there may be some money in the 2022 legislative agenda. Does anybody have any ideas for an appropriation? I need it by Monday. So, okay. So it just sort of spilled out of my head. On a weekend, I wrote this up, and we can get into the details about it in a minute. But anyway, I wrote it up, I sent it in, got immediate interest from Assembly Member Isaac Bryan, who carried it. It passed through virtually every committee almost unanimously and resulted in the passage of AB 1913, which by law created the California Center for Climate Education at West Los Angeles College with a very specific series of expectations. So that's how it came about. It was just something that, look, we've got a moral imperative to educate students, especially community college students, because our students are among the ones that are most harmed. You and I, for example, could go home probably and turn on our air conditioning. Many of your students can't. I have students that travel 2 hours one way to get here on a bus. They're working really hard, and urban climate change is significant, heat islands and that kind of stuff. And I just felt like we needed to educate students to be their own advocates, to be community leaders, to be educators, to be politicians, and to understand that my generation has mucked this up. And we've got to give them as much education as possible to carry this on. If you pay attention to the global climate change conference going on right now, they're saying that the 1.5 degree max is already dead. So what can I do to help my students prepare for that? So it came across, Scott, as something I felt that we had a responsibility to do. Because when people ask me, I keep it very simple. If you can't drink the water, if you can't breathe the air, all this other stuff we do is irrelevant. So you got to make people understand that the environment in which we live drives everything else. So that's how it came apart. It was interesting. The legislature has given millions of dollars to the UCs and CSUs and millions of dollars to the K-12s. And you know how much money they've given to community colleges for this before I requested? Zero.
I do know, because it's my passion too.
Yeah. So, I was very fortunate. It was funded at full $5 million for 3 years. It's interesting. The legislative analyst came back and said, this is a good idea. You really should ask for $7 million, but I don't think you can get away with that. And then fortunately, Senator Alex Padilla provided a $1.32 million earmark to support our workforce development efforts. So that's how the center itself came to be. And then we can talk about what it's supposed to do and all that. It was just an interesting alignment of an idea I had, support from the district, support from an assembly member, and timing. That's how it happened.
Wow. Well, I'm already stunned. I actually did not know that you were so personally involved in the creation of the center. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your leadership and your vision, and the fact that you recognize the gravity of the climate crisis from a social justice perspective just makes me want to start to cry with joy, because it feels to me that this is why community colleges must be at the forefront of climate education. Not only are we the great lighthouse of education for students of color, for marginalized students, for first-gen students, as you and I both know, we're also dealing with a student population that is the most radically impacted by every micro degree that the planet heats up. And we are already in a crucial situation. The news today was that it is now 100% certain that this year, 2023, is the hottest year in human history, and really the hottest year in about the last 125,000 years. So it's an urgent time for us to have this conversation.
I appreciate your bringing up the social justice piece, because if you go back and read the text of Assembly Bill 1913, there's a part of it that was written, was pulled out verbatim from what I proposed. Because when I was going through and writing about it, I said that the center is predicated on the premise that at its core, climate change issues are social justice issues. And that was left in the bill. And I was really proud that that piece about it being more than just the science was recognized by the legislators, and it passed all the way through with a social justice statement in it. The center was created for three reasons: to create curriculum, which I'll get to in a minute, to do workforce development, and to engage in community outreach by providing student learning experiences. So my idea for the curriculum was, California community colleges have this repository or whatever it's called, where once you have a course of record, it's put up there and anybody can use it. Right. My thinking was for the center was providing faculty academic development grants to create courses. Then once those courses are approved at the local level and go into the repository, then any of the other 115 community colleges in California can pull out climate change and the weather, or pull out climate change and psychology, that kind of thing. And that way the message could be spread out. And so I've got 17 faculty right now on academic development grants building climate courses. The interesting part about all this was I just sort of came to the campus and said, we're doing climate change. It's important. We're going to do climate change across the curriculum. Are you with me? Yeah, I've got all sorts of support on campus. I have all these faculty working on it. I've got student support. I also have a climate change major. I don't know if you knew that. I have an associate's degree in climate change studies.
Saw that, yeah.
And the student involvement is increasing. Now I've got really good partnerships in the community. But what's happened is people are seeing their interest is finding a way to be addressed through our center. And so the center has morphed a little bit from what I'd originally designed it to be much more engaged with the community than I expected. But it goes back to the social justice piece. So we hired a wonderful director. She just defended her dissertation successfully today, about an hour ago. She has 2 master's degrees in climate issues. She is a podcaster and activist. She's native Brazilian, so she knew about the loss of the rainforest, and she has been wonderful. And so the end of October, we did a 3-day climate palooza. We had over 700 people here, and the first day was all about heightening the awareness of high school students. Yeah. Second day was climate change and gaming, where teams of high school students were brought in. They were given the parameters, and then they competed with each other in what kind of game, whether it was a board game or an online game that could be developed to promote climate change education. And then the third day, West hosted the first conference in the history of Los Angeles County to bring together blue and green industries with community colleges to say, what kind of training do you need? Because if you look at the projections for the blue and green economy, 60-something% of the blue and green economy jobs are in LA County. So I knew that we needed to figure out a way to match what they need. Because like down at the Los Angeles or the Long Beach port, for example, they've got all this new equipment to do undersea research, but they don't have anybody trained to manage it. So my thinking was, okay, let's figure out what they need in terms of short-term courses. And it doesn't all have to be at West. There's 19 community colleges in Los Angeles County, and there's more than enough to go around. So like Santa Monica College is doing some really cool stuff in aquaculture. And there's a school in the Central Valley that's doing some great stuff with fire management and water management, okay? So there's different pieces around, but West right now is the only school that's trying to pull it together in terms of a social issue and melding, you know, the economics and history and all that kind of stuff with the science to help students understand that it's more than just the degrees rising. It's also, for example, did you know women are more impacted by climate change than anybody else?
So I'm thrilled to hear the other half of the sky is part of your equation as well. And you hired a female director, which is essential as well. So I'm just full of applause. I am going to pause just to say, can we back up and for the viewing audience, can you define the blue and green economy? Because not everyone is
sure.
That term.
The green economy basically are those jobs that are related to climate change mitigation, okay? So people automatically think of solar panels and electric car charging stations, but it's so much more in terms of emissions control and that type of thing. The blue economy has to do with ocean research, seaweed farming, that type of thing, protecting the coral reefs, that kind of thing, and the jobs that are attached to protection of the oceans. And that's really beginning to develop here because of our location, because of the port and all that kind of thing. So the blue and green economy in LA is particularly interesting. Now, I'm real fortunate. I'm on the executive committee of the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation, which is one of the largest economic development entities in the country. And I was brought on, I would like to think, because I have a particular viewpoint about workforce and blue and green economy. And so it's been a wonderful opportunity to engage with some of the major players in LA in the blue and green industries to see how West and the community college can contribute in some way to those initiatives. So I'm real fortunate in that respect.
It's thrilling that your college and you yourself personally and your colleagues and your students are taking leadership in this absolutely crucial issue. And you're the vanguard of really the largest system of higher education in the United States, but also the largest system of higher education almost anywhere on the planet. And so if we're not taking the lead, then what are we doing at this critical moment in human history, in planetary history, in global history, in biohistory?
You ask what the next steps are. The next steps are to step back now that the flush of the success of the Palooza has cemented our reputation. Go back to the original bill and say, okay, now what do we need to do? I need to get a full advisory council going. I need to formalize the way we're doing the curriculum, because I have, thankfully, a lot of support from State Chancellor Christian. She's mentioned the college several times because climate change is one of the pillars in her strategic plan. So we take very seriously wanting to stay on top of what's going on. So developing now our strategies on where we move forward. I really need to get into workforce now, because apprenticeships are coming back as a major issue. And we've already been talking about, okay, how can I develop a program here of climate-based apprenticeships, where they can work in a blue or green economy while they work on their program, and then develop, like sometimes they may need only a 12-unit short-term certificate to get into the field. And so that's the next thing that we're trying to explore. What kind of real training, based on what we learned at the career conference, do they really need out there? It may not be a full 2-year degree. The other thing we have to work out is, how can my climate change program transfer? Because right now there's no alignment anywhere in the state between a climate change studies program and a four-year school. So we have to figure that out, because right now the only way the students can do it is we've twisted a little bit between climate change and environmental studies. So part of the environmental studies will transfer, but not all the climate change piece yet. But I've heard that UCLA is trying to build a comprehensive climate education program, and UCLA, I can see them from here. That's how close we are to them on the west side. So there's opportunities for partnerships there. So it's all these different things, and it's also keeping the momentum going on campus. You know, we want to meet regularly with the faculty. We're trying to get more faculty to participate, because I just sort of feel the clock ticking, that we need to, as soon as possible, make sure our students have exposure to this. There is so much we can do. Unfortunately, I've got the funding to do it, and now it's organizing it in a way where I can keep all these pie plates spinning in the air and keep moving it forward.
Right. And I do want to, once more, I want to back up just to let you give some praise to your board, because I think I was impressed when you said the board got behind this. Because I know after many decades in community college system, if they don't get behind it, then it's not gonna fly. That's what boards are for, right? And so I just want to give some praise to West's board, or your district's board, for recognizing that this was a crucial, essential, existential issue. And I think it literally places your campus in the vanguard nationwide of climate programs. It's very interesting to me, again, as an educator who's worked on this all my life, that you are now, as we often are, ahead to some degree of UCLA, ahead of the CSU system, ahead. And this has often been the role of community colleges unacknowledged, right? Like we have, although we are tied to the university curriculums and the CSUs and the UCLAs, or the UCs for transfer purposes, often it's community college faculty who are in the lead of such outreach efforts. For example, we go back far enough. You'll remember when deep ecology was the hot topic. That was George Sessions, a professor at Sierra College, who was the co-author of that breakthrough book that sort of put deep ecology on the map way back in the 1980s. Okay. So
I came out of four-year institutions, and I was attracted to community colleges because I was the president of a four-year school in Montana.
All right.
And shifted over, and you probably know from being around Stanford, it takes a while to make curriculum changes.
Oh.
My faculty, to their everlasting credit, created, passed, and implemented our climate change program in less than a year.
Good Lord, that's nearly a miracle in education.
They were committed to it. They worked hard on it. It got through the curriculum committee. It got through the district academic senate, and they were rocking and rolling. And so the next fall we were enrolling students.
Wow.
So it's been very much a team effort here. And when I go out and talk to folks, like I met with new faculty this morning, I was telling them about the next 5 years, because I have a somewhat audacious goal that in 5 years, West will be the national leader in community college climate change education. And I tell them every job here is a climate job. You all can contribute one way or the other, either by advising students into it, by participating in activities, by letting your students out early to come to a climate change event. I said, you can all support doing this. It doesn't have to be just planning a class or knowing all the science, just by making students aware of it. I have, for example, a faculty member that's working on climate change and statistics, contextualizing statistics to help students understand what that means. I mean, faculty are stepping up with those kind of very creative ways to bring climate change into it, so that we can truly be climate change across the curriculum. And what's interesting is in July of 2020, the Los Angeles Community College District passed a sustainability and energy pledge. And you know that sustainability and climate change are not the same, but they're interrelated.
Certainly.
But what we're working on separately from this is trying to walk the walk by adjusting our services here, our emissions and that kind of thing, so that while we're talking about emissions, we're actually trying to manage it here on West. Like, you know, the Association for Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, ASHE, We're the only school in the district that's done the inventory, so we know where our problems are. And so we're going ahead in that area also. So I have a sustainability committee over here, and then I've got the folks involved with the climate change over here. And now we're now beginning to sort of weave together as we get more refined in what we're trying to do. But you know, Scott, it's both exciting and overwhelming. It is exhilarating and humbling to do all of this and have the opportunity and have the support of the campus, the board, the legislature. And I've just put together a proposal for another appropriation to create a mobile climate change education center to take out to the local schools.
Great idea.
It's very important, especially here in LA, for some of our underserved public schools, for them to understand what it means.
Another follow-up question I wanted to ask you is just tell me, I mean, I was just scanning your website to get ready for this interview because you're the first person I've talked to about your program, right? So I read the article in the LAist and I scanned the websites. I sent out a preliminary email to find out who I should be contacting. But it looks like you're going to launch with a couple of classes coming out of the gate, right? And I think you're planning a philosophy class, if I'm remembering correctly.
We have an environmental ethics course.
Talk a little bit about the initial curriculum that you've planned to launch.
We've already got the environmental ethics class. We weave climate change into some of our science classes. We're planning climate change and the weather because that's a core course we don't have yet. And the curriculum piece, if you're interested in going further, I can connect you to our specialist in curriculum. But when you talk to Joe Tavares Rager, you're going to talk to somebody who will absolutely blow your socks off with her knowledge, her enthusiasm, her commitment, her creativity. Joe was the one making this work. I happened to have the idea, and I was smart enough to step back and say, Joe, here's $5 million and a key to the office. Here's the parameters. You go do what you need to do. And she is. And it's just an example of knowing where your talents lie. I knew it was important, but I'm not a scientist.
Right.
Okay. But I knew how the system worked and how I did my part. And now my part is continue to support her while she develops it. And she's already got all sorts of college students involved. We have partnerships with community organizations, and she's only been on the job since April.
Wow.
So
well, I'm going to interrupt you though, because I think this was part of your vision. And I admired it so much from the moment that I started reading about your program, is that it truly is across the curriculum. And all credit to them. Many climate-focused programs are almost exclusively within the STEM realm. And not that, STEM is obviously has a huge role to play in addressing mitigating the climate crisis. But so do the humanities. We're both humanists, right? So do the arts. This is not a problem that any one department or any one school can possibly solve. It is the most intergenerational, interdepartmental, interfaith, inter-academic problem that we have ever faced or ever will face as a human species. And the fact that you've set it up from the get-go, from the launch, as not just STEM, but STEAM, as we all like to say, right? With an arts, with inclusion of philosophy, with a vision for inclusion of the community, that is so fundamental. And to build a foundation on that basis, I can't congratulate you enough. That was one of the things that astounded me when I started reading about it, because I almost automatically assumed that it would be a almost exclusively STEM-based program, as they frequently are. And again, that's fine, except it's not sufficient to address the true crisis, nor is it sufficient to bring the entire community, the entire student community, the entire legislative community in behind us. So congratulations on the broad basis.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Along that line, I've got a couple of faculty members planning some wonderful English courses based on climate change literature. Right. I have a business faculty member that's really creating an intriguing one about business and climate and how it affects businesses and business decisions and labor and placement of businesses. I mean, doing things that I sort of thought about, but they're taking it a whole other place.
Right.
And that's really fascinating that a student can walk into this business course and like entrepreneurship, okay? Got to
Right.
think about if your business is going to locate here. You see where I'm going? So that's the cool part about all this. It's the big job is making sure that everybody feels supported, making sure that everybody feels valued in the effort, making sure that we recognize that we're really beginning to change the culture of the institution for the better.
Right.
And that's a really fulfilling part for me to see folks want to be part of something larger than they are.
Well, and which is the deepest motivation in education, right?
Mhm.
Like if you give students a purpose and a mission and a place, they will keep coming back to the campus. They will keep coming back to class. They will complete their education. They will be the future leaders. They'll find a way to get it done. And that mission is not just a dollar sign. The mission is what you're going to do with your life to make your own community better.
Oh, I
And you
understand.
make me feel even better about it because I have not been satisfied with our leadership in climate education. I have not been fully satisfied as a community college system. I think, and I know we can do better. And there's hundreds of professors doing brilliant work out there, right? But we have not created something like your center before. And the fact that your center explicitly has a mission for all of California makes it even more exciting to me because that's what I think is absolutely needed. I think your campus can literally lead the whole system, and then our system as a whole can help lead the whole world.
Well, that's what I'm hoping, that in some small way our efforts will spark others to participate.
Yes.
I really do. You know, it's interesting. I've often been asked, well, why West? Well, if you look at it pragmatically, West is near the ocean, so we can study that. We're near
That's
the
right.
mountains because I'm in Culver City, near Santa Monica, that type of thing. We've got the mountains. We're doing urban creek restoration with Bayona Creek. I'm right next, you can't see it. I am right next to the world's largest urban oil field. So some irony, isn't there?
Oh, yes.
But there's a learning opportunity
That's
right
right.
there. The district is real supportive of it. So my location in and of itself lends itself to it more so than a really rural institution would. Now, a rural institution can do great things.
Right.
They can't get students into urban issues, ocean issues, mountain, stream reclamation, urban heat islands, all those kind of things that are going on. And West is able to, plus play off against an oil field next door. So when I'm asked, along with just the theoretical idea, the physicality of where we're at contributes. Organized, but I sit here thinking, right now I'm looking out my window and I can see the ocean, and I'm sitting here thinking somewhat cynically, in 100 years, is my college going to be waterfront property? You know, because I'm less than 2 miles from the beach, so
Right.
you know I'm on a hill up overlooking. So from my window, I can see Marina Del Rey, the Santa Monica Mountains, Santa Monica, Sony Studios. I mean, I've got the whole west side out in front of me. And
Right.
I'm thinking, okay, is that going to be beachfront? You know, but in today's world, I'm pleased to be able to contribute in some fashion to propelling ahead the awareness, the education, and the outreach on this important topic. You know, if you don't take risks at this point in time,
Oh.
I told him we can either be a forward-moving institution or we can be status quo, and I don't do status quo real well. So I'd rather be forward-moving and ruffle some feathers. But you know what, Scott? Right now, you've got to ruffle feathers. I mean, the world's changing, and we have to be prepared for that. So.